Hi everyone, my name is Raja Bose. I worked very closely with Shawn during the time when I took my GMAT, and it was hands down the best move I ever made. So a little bit of background. I knew I wanted to apply to a top tier MBA program, and in order to do that I knew the GMAT was a critical component to my application. So first thing I did, before I started looking into working with Shawn or anything, I just went out. I thought, I'll just go out, buy a bunch of books and practice tests, hammer on it hard, and see where I get. And went out, bought those books, took a bunch of tests, and consistently I just wasn't where I needed to be. I knew that if I went in and I took the test, the score I would get just would not be competitive for the schools that I was targeting. So I found Shawn's information through his website. I read the testimonials, and that's what convinced me to work with Shawn, because his techniques were proven. So I came in and we started working together, and right off the bat I'll tell you, working with Shawn is great, but at the same time you have to be prepared to put in a lot of hard work. It's not about just writing the checks and walking in and getting your whatever score that you want. It's about really putting in the time. Most of you guys probably be working at the same time, so it's about getting up early in the morning and studying before going to work. It's about coming home from work and studying till late night and really putting in the time. Shawn and I worked really closely on math problems. It's a good feeling when you can look at a math problem and know how it's done, but it's a great feeling when you can look at it and say, I know how to do this in not 3 minutes or 4 minutes, but in 45 seconds. And you move on to the next problem that you knowing that the last one you got done perfectly. And on the verbal side, we worked through all kinds of grammar. We started at the fundamentals, simple grammar, making sure that those things were solid before moving on to harder and harder things, sentence corrections, reading comprehension, etc. One thing that is huge to me, I'm a quant guy, a computer science guy from my undergrad and my graduate degrees, but this is the first time ever that on the GMAT I walked away with a higher verbal score than a math score. That was all because of Shawn's doing. He really drilled it into me, and it showed, and it really showed on the test. When I finally walked out of the test on my first try, I walked out with a 730, which was awesome, which I wouldn't have dreamed of before meeting Shawn. And went into my applications, and finally starting this fall I'll be attending Northwestern Kellogg, and that is, I'm super excited. I know, whatever my application was, it was only enhanced significantly because of what Shawn did for me, and I'm going to the school of my dreams. So thank you, Shawn.
I originally took the GMAT in 2006, right out of school. I decided that I was ready for business school, and this was the best time. I had just been in school, and why not just take a test? It's just another test, I can do this. So I bought a Kaplan book and decided, okay, I'll read through it and I'll take a couple of the tests and I'll be ready. And I went in and I totally bombed. I got a 590, which wasn't exactly the score I was looking for. Everyone's looking for a 700, let's not kid ourselves. And so I decided, why don't I go work for a few years, figure this out, and I'll retake it. So when I got serious again, when I decided that this is really what I wanted to do, I did two things. I called my friends, first of all, and I called a friend that was at a Stanford MBA and a friend that was at a Wharton MBA. And I asked them, what'd you guys do? Tell me what to do. Like, I gotta take a class. Last time I just used the book, it didn't work. What do I do? And both of them said, go to Shawn. And I was like, okay, what does that mean, right? What is that? And they're like, it's expensive, but just talk to him. Like, I know the number's scary right now, but go and talk to him. So I said, okay, fine. If that's the first thing, that I'm gonna do, then fine. So I went and talked to him, and he told me that with his program, I was gonna get 100 points on my score. And I was like, all right, that sounds pretty good. That's really close to a 700. I bet with a little bit of extra effort, we could get there. And so I decided, after consulting a few other friends and finding out what their scores were and how they had done comparatively with studying, that this was the best option for me. And so I started working with Shawn. And yeah, it was a little scary at first. It cost a lot of money, but you're talking to someone right now who scored a 720 on their score 5 years after taking their first one. And I'll tell you right now, it is sure worth it. It is definitely something that, I would have regret not doing as well as I did, and I would spend the money again in a heartbeat because I, I would never want to, have to put myself through this again. And another thing for you guys to know is that this happened the first time I took the test. So not only is Shawn going to equip you with the ability to understand the problems, he's going to help you with the confidence to let you go into the test and be like, I can do this first time. No wasting money, no extra stress, no extra time, no 30-day waiting period. Just get in, get it done, and get ready for the rest of your life. So I really recommend it, and I wish you guys all the best of luck. I think the most important thing that I learned from the very first day that I met with Shawn is what my weaknesses and strengths were. He was able to come to me and say, here's what we really need to focus on in this test. Let's get the writing portion out of the way, let's focus on that, be successful, and then let's focus on what you need to focus on. So for me, I was weakest in my math section. What that means is that we went through hundreds of problems every single time that we met, which means that I was putting the time in and he was putting the time in to guarantee that when it came to test day, I was going to be successful in any situation that presented itself. I only missed 4 problems on this test. I went from someone who was missing 20 to 25 to someone who's missing 4 problems total. And you don't get to that level without just consistent practice and consistent mentorship and someone who's willing to, every time that you have an issue, go back over it with you and make you understand the fundamentals that you need to learn to be able to be good at this test. Again, not to say we didn't spend any time on verbal. Trust me, you're going to be doing a lot of verbal. But that was just not something that we spent as much time on. And for me, that was what made me successful, is to be able to understand where those strengths and weaknesses were and what to focus on. Again, we still did 1,000 sentence corrections. Yeah, that's right, 1,000 of them. And I could do them in my sleep, and it took me the least amount of time on my test, which is actually great. It helps you kind of balance your time. But it really allows you to understand your strengths and weaknesses and do the best that you could possibly do on this test, and allow you to get into the best damn business school that you want to go to.
My name's Zach. I live in San Francisco. I just finished the perfect GMAT with Shawn Berry and took the fourth GMAT, my fourth GMAT test yesterday and got a 700, which is my target score. That's up from an average of 560 over 3 tests that I had taken previously. The reason why I decided to go forward with working with Shawn was the initial consultation, where you do a set of questions and then you go over the questions with Shawn. And from that, I knew that this was the type of program that I needed to get out of that range that I was in before. I had done the Manhattan course and tried studying on my own, couldn't pull it off, and knew that I needed something drastic to really get me into that, no more worry zone. So through the consultation, started working on some of the problems, and it became really clear that the focus was only on the material and only getting better at taking the test. As a result, I knew that that was exactly the right thing to do, and it was absolutely worth paying for. So there are 2 things that you get out of it, really. You get out an incredible amount of experience with the material. I did over 1,000 sentences, a ton of reading comprehension and critical reasoning, and certainly over 1,000 quantitative questions as well. So you get just a vast base of practice to work on every single thing that you get wrong. But then you also commit to working with somebody who's very intense, and this makes you take the experience very seriously. You can't sit in a class in Manhattan. It's kind of like a lighthearted attitude, atmosphere, and you can get away with not being 100% focused. But I mean, my situation was is that it wasn't going to get me over the hump. So I knew that I needed something very intense and focused, and that's exactly what the program offered. Going into the test, I knew that it was going to be my last time doing it. You know, there's only so many times you can bang your head against the wall, so to speak. And I wanted to get the target score, right? So I put everything that I had into it, and working with Shawn got me there.
Hi, I'm Andrew from San Francisco. So I did Shawn Berry's GMAT program, which worked out very well for me. I had heard about him from a hedge fund manager that recommended Shawn. Said that a lot of his analysts had gone to him and had huge improvement in their GMAT scores, and thought he was really the best in terms of the GMAT, and you know, I really should see no one else for the GMAT. You know, I think that, well, the advice that he gave me, and that I think was very relevant, is that GMAT's one of the few things in your application that really you can change at this point. You know, that your kind of academic background, your work experience is all kind of set, and so it's, you know, you might as well do all you can do to get it to be better, to get the best GMAT score you can get. And so I think, you know, Shawn, you know, is definitely the best at kind of helping people get great scores. You know, I think it's just kind of shown in my experience, and you know, I kind of highly recommend this program. You know, so I guess for me, I did his, you know, I'm not a great test taker to begin with. I, you know, haven't done historically great on kind of standardized tests. And so from the beginning, I was kind of looking for someone to really help me to kind of get a better score. I, you know, had a GMAT book, and kind of knew I wasn't going to score that well, and I kind of needed all the help I can get. And so I did this program. I did the 16 classes and whatnot, and it went well. You know, I definitely learned a lot. And then I took the GMAT, and I didn't score very well. I got a 540 the first time I took it, which was, you know, I guess wasn't a surprise, because I knew I wasn't doing that well. It was definitely, you know, not a usable score. I think I couldn't, you know, I probably wasn't going to go to business school unless I thought I could get into a top school, and that's just not a score that you can really apply anywhere I'd want to go with. And so I ended up stopping at that point, because I was doing the third level of CFA, and I wanted to finish that up. And so then I kind of went back to Shawn after that to try it again. And the second time definitely made a huge difference. At that point, kind of things just started to click. His like process, his program, kind of his method to how you learn both the quant and the verbal, really helped my score a lot. And so I think the first time I did it, but it just didn't quite sink in. I didn't spend enough time on it. I didn't study enough. And you know, because it's not handed to you. You still got to do it. But you know, I think once you figure it out, it's not, you know, it's not impossible. Like there's a lot of stuff that once you just know how to solve them, like you can do it very quickly and accurately. And so I think, you know, the second time I took it, I scored a 710. Which was, you know, a huge improvement. My verbal went from like the 30th percentile or something to the 95th percentile, and you know, the math went. I don't remember my percentile in the math exactly, but it went. You know, I got 5 wrong or something. You know, and so it was a huge improvement. And you know, now I have a score that you know is good. You know, I can definitely apply to the top business schools and not worry that my GMAT score is going to significantly count against me.
My name is Sherwin. I'm from San Jose, California, and I studied the GMAT with Shawn Berry. I did extremely well, and I scored a 770, which was, you know, in the 99th percentile. I got a 50 out of a perfect 51 in quant, and a 45 out of 47 on verbal. That's definitely the 99th percentile. And what's more amazing is I did it on my first try, so I didn't have to take it again. I know it definitely would not have been possible without taking Shawn Berry's GMAT service. And I think that there are 3 real reasons why I'd say Shawn's tutoring is just a cut above the rest. The first is the depth of knowledge. Shawn knows the ins and outs of the test like the back of his hand. And I don't just mean, little tricks and things. I mean the subject matter. He can explain it, and he can explain it very well. An example is on the quant section, I used to always have problems with probability and probability questions. And he just went and explained, look, combinations are when the order of something doesn't matter, and permutations are when the order is important. And just that knowledge alone got me through a lot of the problems. Another example is on the verbal grammar section. He explained the differences of varying uses of the word that, which would always trip me up. He said, look, sometimes that starts a noun phrase, and sometimes it starts its own clause, but it always has to be there. And knowledge like that definitely helped me get into the 99th percentile of the verbal section. I'd say the second thing would be the extent of practice that we go through. Shawn and I literally went through thousands of problems, of the hardest ones to the extent where cracking open a normal textbook, all those problems were super easy compared to the ones we'd go over. More importantly, Shawn would go over all the questions I missed in excruciating detail, and then he would make me go and teach it back to him, which I think was a really effective strategy because it shows, true mastery of the subject. And you can even know how to do this problem, 2, 3, even 5 weeks later, as opposed to just forgetting it the second you got home. The last thing about Shawn Berry is that he's really good at finding out what he was really good at finding out what my specific problems were and tailoring the program to that. I started out coming off higher on the verbal section than the quant, and so we probably spent a quarter of our time on verbal and 75 focusing on all the problem areas that I had on the quantitative section. Instead of a one-size-fit-all solution, he made sure that all my bases were covered and my weakest areas were bolstered up significantly. I'd highly recommend Shawn Berry's GMAT service to any friend of mine who's serious about getting an MBA, and I recommend it to you too.
Okay. Hey, I'm Andrew from Palo Alto. You can see I'm here on University Avenue with Shawn. We're having some lunch. And I just wanted to encourage those of you who are looking to do GMAT preparation to definitely consider working with Shawn. I came into Shawn with about a low 600, mid 600 GMAT score, was really having difficulty breaking that number. And after a program with Shawn, I was able to break 700, ended up getting accepted and attending Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern, which was great. I think that Shawn provides a type of training that no other Kaplan, Princeton Review just aren't able to offer you. It gives you one-on-one attention. You go over thousands of questions. Shawn is truly, I would say, a coach as much as a teacher, which is critical for this test. You need to put in time, effort. Shawn will be on your case. He's going to work with you like an athletic coach would work with somebody training for the Olympics. It was just a great experience, and it's paid off for me. I'm definitely glad I did it. It's also very important to realize that with the amount of money that you'd be investing in your not only preparation but attending school, you want to try to get into the best school possible, a top 10. With a score that's over 700, you are increasing that chance greatly. And I felt that for me, I needed the coaching of Shawn and his teaching to get through to that highest level.
Hi, my name's Sudeep. I am looking to apply to a top 5 business school to come back and run my family business. I'm from San Francisco. Initially, I realized the importance of a very high GMAT score for going into a top 5 business school, and I worked with somebody to try to get me there. I ended up with a 650 after 2 months worth of work. I was referred to Shawn after that by a friend of mine, and after speaking with Shawn on the phone, I really got the confidence that he was the one who could help me. He showed me his strategy of, talked about his strategy of doing every question in under 2 minutes on quant. That was one of my issues. Once I started working with Shawn, I realized that he didn't simply force his own method on me. He really took the time to figure out where my strengths were and work with me on those, building my strengths while reducing some of my weaknesses or working on some of my weaknesses. He, on the quant side specifically, he recognized my strong algebra skills and helped me gain some math insight to be able to solve every question under 2 minutes. On the verbal, he taught me all the rules of grammar from the ground up for sentence correction, which is where my problem was, and I did over 1,000 sentence corrections with him. I was through sheer practice and a lot of questions and good strategy, I was actually able to end up with a 730 on the GMAT, and I feel a whole lot more confident about applying to business school, and I'm actually very excited about my chances because of Shawn, and I'm applying to Harvard, Stanford, MIT, and Wharton right now. And I don't think without a 700 plus GMAT score I would be even considering any of those schools. So I really encourage you that if you're looking to go to a top 5 MBA, which really makes a lot of sense, try Shawn out because it works, and $10,000 is a drop in a bucket when you compare it to some of the salaries or what the kind of money you would be making after a top 5 MBA program. Thank you.
You know, especially in the verbal too, I think the verbal program is especially unique because it's not, you know, it kind of starts from scratch in terms of looking at sentences and especially in sentence correction, that's kind of his, you know, that's kind of a big part of the test and something I didn't do very well on originally. And, you know, I definitely learned a lot.
Well, that's what scared me was the money.
Okay.
The rest of it is like, yeah, we'll work your fucking ass off. Good luck.
Okay, that's fine.